welcome back to the bulletin. My name is Darryl Kwa. We begin with developments in the aviation sector. The Ghanaian passengers who were allegedly assaulted and verbally abused by staff of TAP Air Portugal say they will still sue the airline. This is despite an apology issued by TAP Air Portugal. Sheila Tamaklo has the rest of the story.
The three Ghanaian women who were heading to Sao Tome had purchased their flight tickets 4 months ago. Initial reports had it that they were asked to vacate their seats for Caucasian passengers because the flight was overbooked. Having resisted the ejection from the flight, the three women were subsequently allegedly assaulted and dragged out of the boarding area by some security officials.
You're telling me I can't fly. It's not quite normal. You can't touch me. So don't touch me.
The victims have since lodged a complaint of assault against the security officials as well as officials of the airline at the airport police station.
We finished with the check-in, then on Saturday we went to the airport to get our boarding passes. So we just proceeded with the departure formality, went through immigration, did everything and went to our gate, which is gate 2, to wait for boarding. Then I was there with my sister and Evelyn when the TAP official sent one of their staff to come and call Evelyn and myself that they needed us downstairs. So we got there, then Georgia said, "Madam, we have an issue. There's been an incident of overbooking and we would have to drop Evelyn and you." So I firmly declined and told Georgia, "No, I'm not going to agree. You should have told me that before you issued me a boarding pass."
There were 4 security guys there, and then I think 4 TAP officials also in presence before the foreigners, and they said they were not letting us enter. So they started pushing Ifa, even though she had their ticket and everything. They started pushing her. So I took out my phone. I was going to record what was happening to both of them, and then one security guy just held my neck and pushed me on a metal chair right behind me. He was struggling to take the phone out of me so that I won't record. So I gave him the phone. I had another phone in my bag. I took that one out and I said, "We need evidence because we know that this thing, if we don't film something, then they're going to use their word against us and call us liars."
TAP Air Portugal has issued an apology letter on the incidents and assured that proper investigations will be carried out. However, the victims insist they will pursue the suit.
Well, I'm joined in studio by Apia Kusiadmako. He's Center Coordinator at the Consumer Unity Trust Society. To delve into the issues, I just want to first begin by asking you about your reaction when you heard about the story.
Thank you very much, and your viewers. I think what happened that day was very, very unfortunate for a passenger to have paid for a flight to travel, and at the point of boarding gate, you bump the passenger at against her will. I think it violates every rule of fairness and natural justice.
All right. Just by way of education, what is the usual procedure in a situation like that when your flight is overbooked and you think that you have to get some passengers off the flight?
So, I mean, it is not criminal for an airline to overbook. Under the new Ghana Civil Aviation guidelines, it says that all airlines are supposed to display a notice on their check-in counter saying that we do sometime overbook, but in event everybody showing up, we will ask for volunteers. So the airline will have to come at the check-in counter and say that we are fully overbooked to the tune of, let's say, 20 passengers. So we want people to volunteer. And anybody who volunteer is given compensation, and that compensation should be paid to the passenger immediately. It's not go and come back the following day for it. That is the procedure. And in event whereby you don't get enough volunteer, there is still a process that you have to go through. First, there are people that you cannot deny them boarding, sick people going for medication, parents, family traveling in a group, and also for people who also pay so much premium for their ticket you cannot deny them boarding. And I'm sorry to say that this practice of overbooking is very, very predominant in Ghana. And most airlines sometimes hide behind a check-in regulation they do overbooking. And if you get there, they say you are late for check-in, and then they ask you that go and pay money to reschedule your flight. I remember some time ago I was traveling to Africa with one African carrier. Whilst in the queue, one airline agent came and told us that the flight is overbooked, and so they should quickly rush everybody through the check-in and then close the check-in gate. So that whoever comes, you'll be told that you are late for check-in. Check-in is closed. Go and pay $200, $300 to reschedule your flight. And so the new Ghana Civil Aviation Regulatory directives, which one comes into operation, possibly I'm very hopeful that it should come into place by the first quarter of next year, and this is going to correct all the anomalies.
We'll delve into the regulations in a bit, but I just wanted to find out from you. I mean, in the last few hours, we've seen TAP Air Portugal apologize for what happened. First of all, some people think that it's been late in coming, but is that reaction enough? They're also saying that they are going to investigate the issue. What do you make of their reaction so far?
I think apology is not enough. I mean, apology does not preclude the victims from going to court to seek for criminal and civil damages against what they did, because we are told that there was some physical assault that resulted in lacerations and abrasions, and these are criminal cases in which the Attorney General should prosecute.
And we haven't heard of any compensation so far. I mean, not because they were assaulted, but usually when you're not kicked off a flight, but if you're asked to, board another flight because one particular flight is booked, you expect that an airline will compensate you. I don't see that come up in all of this.
Yes, because some of these airlines, they know that they're operating in Ghana where the rules are not here. And so they don't want to even talk about compensation. Meanwhile, in their country, they do what is right. Here, because we don't have the consumer protection law, the GCA regulation is also not in effect. So they are kind of laid back. And I think that if the lawyers of the victims write to the airline for compensations, I'm very sure that the airlines will compensate them. As when they go to court, they may get a bigger package than what the compensation is.
You brought up the GCAA. I don't know what has been happening back door, but openly we've not heard the GCAA comment about these latest developments. How does that come to you?
Well, I would say that this thing happened during the Christmas season, and during the Christmas season, offices are not at full staff, and so that could be the reason why. But I believe that shortly after the new year, we can have an official release from the legal department of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. All
right, so now we can talk about the regulations that we are hoping that will be introduced maybe in the course of next year. What are those regulations, and how are they going to ensure that the rights of the passengers when it comes to the aviation sector is respected?
So the regulation is about the domestication of the Montreal Protocol, which was passed in 1985. And so we are almost 23 years behind in terms of implementing it. The regulation looks at denied boarding. That is when you pay for your flight and then you are denied boarding because of overbooking. It also looks at your delays. Let's say, for example, if the aircraft delays for more than certain hours, the passenger is required for compensation. Everybody on board that flight is required for compensation. And as well as your luggage. If you lose your luggage or your luggage even delays, you are also required for compensation when the regulation comes into play.
Thank you very much, Apia Kusi Adumako, for your time here. I'm sure that later we'll discuss more about these regulations, but very good to have your perspective on this unfolding issue. I want to move on to some other story of following for you this afternoon. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, says it will be investigating the cause of what it is describing as the inflated wage bill of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC. Now, according to PIAC, the issue of high salaries and wages at the nation's petroleum exploration company has become a major source of worry for the Finance Committee of Parliament whenever it presents the annual report on petroleum revenue and expenditure. In an interview with Joy Business, member of the committee, Dr. Steve Mantial, hinted PIAC will be looking into the cause of that since it reappeared in the 2017 half-year report.
It had to do with the ballooning of the wage bill of Parliament, of GNPC. In this particular instance, I think PIAC could have done some further work in terms of trying to explain what accounted for the ballooning of the wage bill, as to whether it's as a result of additional recruitment or increases in salaries and by what percentage and all that. And then to run a comment as to what the policy recommendation in respect of these increases should be. So, but PIAC left it hanging, and that was a low side in terms of the report. Yeah.
So could PIAC invite GNPC again to come back to tell you or to explain to you why this ballooning?
Yeah, we don't actually need to invite GNPC, but I guess we'll have to look at the figures again and make a few inquiry in terms of what accounted for salary increases in this wage bill. Of course, the documents, whatever we do as PIAC, we do on the basis of documentation. And so we need to look at the document and ask GNPC to explain what happened. But we'll not necessarily invite. We can go to GNPC and seek all these clarifications.
So will we investigate it?
Yeah, it's something PIAC would like to do because we don't want to leave it hanging the way it is.
Dr. Mantia also disclosed that the committee has recommended that government expedites action on decommissioning the Sawpond oil field, which is not bringing any profit to the state.
I think the same has reoccurred in the 2017 half-year report, where we see quite a huge wage bill. But for the 2017 report, I think some attempt was made to explain, and this has to do with the need for GNPC to continue maintaining a skeletal staff on the Sawpond oil field without any active production going on there. We know that if you're not producing and yet you are paying people, of course, it will have a certain effect on the overall overhead cost. And this is what is happening. And the recommendation we've made to government is to expedite action in terms of the decommissioning of the Sawpond oil fields to avoid the unnecessary costs being incurred in maintaining staff on the rig.
All right, let's explore this issue further. Joining me via Skype is the Executive Director of Kite, that is Ishmael Ejekumihene. Well, let's first start with Sawpond oil field operations. I mean, I've heard talk about government decommissioning the oil field, but we've not seen it come to light. Why is it taking so long?
Well, Darrell, I think GNPC should be the ones who should be answering this question. Technically, I don't know how long it takes for a field to be decommissioned. It's been about 3 years now since the GNPC told the PIAC that they're going to decommission. A decision has been taken to decommission the field. So I think GNPC should be able to explain to us why this decommissioning has been lingering on for 3 consecutive years. But what I know and what I'm also certain of is that Sawpond has always been a mistake. We should never have spent devoted resources in Sawpond because it never helped anybody in terms of the oil that was coming from Sawpond. Sometimes if you look at the overhead costs and the price at which they were getting the products and selling the product, it didn't make economic sense. So PIAC were the first to start telling the government to decommission the field. And then when they took the decision, it's taken us a bit of time to finally see the field decommissioned. But GNPC should tell us how long they envisage or they estimate that they will use in decommissioning that field. But so long as the field continues to exist, they will have to keep the skeletal staff, as Dr. Stimantia said.
Okay, and just for the benefit of those watching, why are we asking that Sawpond oil field be decommissioned?
Well, basically, you look at the number of barrels that they've been producing. It was around 22,000. In some cases, the highest of 37,000 barrels, which is almost equivalent to the daily production, less than the daily production from even Jubilee. And that's what they do in a total. So, and the cost after the oil prices dipped sub 50 degrees, it didn't make economic sense for them to continue producing because their production cost was even higher than the cost of selling the oil. So there was no business case for them to continue doing what they were doing.
All right, and interesting, we were talking about the cost of operating Sawpond oil field, as well talking about the high wages and salaries at the GNPC. what do you make of PIAC saying that it wants to investigate the inflated wage bill of GNPC?
Okay. When I was involved in the 2016 annual report, and I remember the committee asking GNPC to explain to us. We had at the time also discovered that there was an increase, and if my memory serves me right, GNPC had said that they needed to increase the number of people they are employing because the 10 project was also gathering steam, and that they had already made those proposals to Parliament. I'm surprised we are being told that the Finance Committee are worried about the increasing wage bill of GNPC because their budgets are approved by Parliament before they go ahead to spend. So we were told that they had increased because their operations, the other fields were coming on stream. The Sankofa, Jinyami, the 10 projects, they had intensified their activities. And especially following the 8-loss ruling, they were going to employ more people to work aggressively on the field that had been suspended. So that was the explanation given. And we were told that Parliament had been told this, and they had approved the budget for them to go ahead to spend the money. So I think it's important that PIAC delve a bit more into this issue, but Parliament should also be called to explain the basis on which they approve the budget for GNPC, because every year they approve the budget before they can go ahead and spend, and the expenditure on wages and salaries are always part of the budget of GNPC.
Okay, and finally, we are heading into a new year, some would say a fresh page, and these issues bother around petroleum expenditure management and all of that. What has been the challenge in 2017, and how do we ensure efficient management of petroleum revenue and cut down on expenditure?
I think it has to do with the way we have decided as a country to use the petroleum revenue for the past 5 years. Even when I was on PIAC and since I was consulting for them, it was always coming up that we were not focusing the expenditure on priority areas, and there were too many areas that were trying to spend the money, and that was affecting the impact of the oil money. So I think going forward in 2017, of course, because the money wasn't enough and a chunk of it was also going to the free SHS, I think we didn't spend the money on too many areas. I think we should, and consistently, what we've been telling the government is that let's decide on what we have been calling legacy projects. If it's a new airport that we want to build with the oil money, let's do that. If it's a railway line we want to build or use the money to develop the railway line from Accra to Paga, let's do that so that everybody can go to this project and say that this is how we spend the oil money. At the moment, we are not doing that, and that's why we are not seeing the impact. I think going into the new year, I hope we'll be able to focus the expenditure on top priority areas so that we will see the impact of oil revenue.
And I'm sure it's a good time to say Happy New Year to you in advance. Thanks very much indeed. That
Many
was Ishbala Jekumhene. He is the Executive Director of KAI, sharing some perspective there. Now, if you're looking for a job in the public sector in 2018, then be moderating your expectations. At least that is the hint we're getting from Deputy Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, Bright Rekubrobe. According to him, government's agenda for job creation next year will be centered on agriculture and the expansion of infrastructure. He says job seekers will be employed along those lines.
All people who wanted hope by way of job. Here, as I saw, we didn't kind of see too much of that, all because we are trying to put lots of structures in place. So we even had to halt some of the recruitments we're doing, bridging the gap somewhere around November, to make sure we have a very well thought through plan to roll out in 2018. So personally, I have been telling all those who are looking for jobs to brace up, because 2018 comes with more hope. And the budget that we rolled out is termed a Juma budget. From page 1 to the last page, it talks about jobs. And for me, this is the time for everybody to be very optimistic and brace up. One thing I would say moving into 2018 is for people to come with the fact that we want jobs. We want jobs, not the kind of probably jobs they have anticipated. Everybody wants to be in Thai, everybody wants to be in the regional capital, Accra, but a lot more jobs, the agri jobs, and a lot more jobs will not be found in Accra and Takoradi and Kumasi or Tamale. A lot more jobs probably will be found in the districts where we expect our young graduates to brace up and orientate themselves towards starting from somewhere and building it up. Once we have the experience and all that, jobs will even be chasing you up. But now you see most of the jobs we apply, they come with 4 years experience, 3 years experience, which the young ones don't have. It's unfortunate, but because of the private-led kind of jobs that we want to create, nobody wants to, start with a novice. So the government is keen to also start with them, so they become more prepared, and then we roll them on. So this orientation people must have. Everybody wants to be in Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi. It must not be so.
Moving on, and one of the important elements of entrepreneurship is creativity, and 3 ladies are creatively making their way to the top. On this episode of the Joy Business Van, we put the spotlight on the 3 startups who are in the business of making desserts and how social media has helped them scale up. Meet Ansafo, the biological scientist turned food carver. Mami Kuya Aqua, molecular biologist turned pancake maker. KDG Sechi, the musician turned confectioner. And got into the business of carving fruits because she wanted to do something different with her life.
I wanted something different and something new in the system, something challenging and something related to my course. So I decided to go into fruit and vegetable art, which is kind of very new. Probably I'm the only person doing it in Ghana at the moment.
For Mami Kuya Aqua, she started making pancakes since childhood. She actually learned to make them from her mom. She only recently decided to turn it into a business.
Growing up, Mommy used to make pancakes like every Sunday, and then she would allow me to mix colors, so I can make blue pancake, green pancake, red pancake. So then eventually it led to this. I didn't know it to be so big, so I just sat down one day in the house and I was like, oh, I can make pancakes. And I thought that there are so many things you can do with pancakes, so why not turn that into a business? So capitalize on the fact that you can have so much variety and then put that into a business.
KDG just discovered her new passion, experimenting how to make healthy sweets with ginger, the precursor fruit, and cinnamon.
I wanted to do something that I've always loved to do on the side, open some kind of side business, but in what? What do I love the most? I love food. Food, I can eat any type of food except fish. I don't eat fish, but I love food. So I figured, what can I do in Ghana that is a natural resource and that can give back, can help people, and can also be nutritional?
Well, starting off is difficult, and getting your products onto the market is much more difficult.
Sometimes you go for a fair, you put in all your money, but people don't come and buy, so you have to bring everything back home. And then because you've been out for a long time, you have to discard it because you can't sell it again. So that means you lose all your capital. But then I have a lot of friends that encourage me, and Mommy helps a lot. So even though sometimes it looks like it's downhill, there are a few times where somebody just calls because they saw an Instagram post and they want to eat pancakes. And those are the little things that keep me going.
However, social media appears to be working the magic for them.
Yeah, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Mainly Facebook and Instagram is where you can find us and where you can place your orders.
We are always shocked, surprised. But you never did that. Recently, a friend of mine called, hey, our mate in JSS called, have you seen what Annie has been? Has she been doing it herself? Really? Oh, then I'm also going to stop working.
The 3 ladies admit they would not have come so far without the help of social media. And here's the thing, no matter how creative a startup's business model is, the right message has to be sent across to the targeted market. This can certainly be attained through the use of social media. It is not only innovative, but delivers perfect results as well. And this, my friends, is the last edition of Marketplace for the year 2017. We'll see you in 2018.